Hello, my name is Sergey Berezky and I'm working for the Talend Community Coders team, and in this presentation I'm going to show you how to use TREST request and TREST response components in combination with the other data integration components in order to browse through a simple database. I'm going to show you how to return a list of records from a given table in XML format and how to optimize that representation using hyperlinks and optional query parameters, and how to retrieve individual records as well. Let's start from creating a simple REST service job. Um, Done. And then we are going to add all the components which are needed to return the records from the customers table. TREST response request is there. Now we are going to need to add THSQL component for managing the connection properties to the actual database, and XML map component for mapping the data returned from the database to XML. Okay, and one more component which we will need in this specific case is called tflow tutorate, and it is needed to help us connecting REST request and HSQL data components. So let's configure the database properties. This is firstdb, username SA, and table name is customers. Okay, I'm also going to update the query. And finally the schema. We're expecting ID, custom ID, name and surname back. Okay, and surname. And now we're ready to create our first mapping. TREST request may contain a number of mappings for different HTTP verbs and with overlapping URI patterns. But in this case we are starting with a simple one. It's called get customers, and it will manage the customers URI. Get customers. And for now we are not going to modify the schema of this component. We'll do it a bit later, of this mapping actually. Now we are going to connect all the components together. This is a list of all the customers, so let's call it all. And the last thing we need to do is to map the properties which are expected back from the database to XML. And the root element is called customers. We can easily add a namespace to it, but I just won't do it in this presentation. And we're expecting that this root element will contain one or more customer records, sub-elements. And in order to make that work, we also need to configure it as a loop element, and also set this property to true. Okay. And next we're just mapping the property to this element. That will go as an attribute of the target node. Name will be as a sub-element, and surname will go as sub-element as well. Okay, that's all. We're ready to start our first job and test it. So it started. So now we're going to the browser, and this is the URI which will be used to retrieve the list of all the records. So here we go. We can see a list of customers, and every customer record has an ID attribute as well as name and surname. sub-elements. Just for your info, here is the actual database manager, just to show you. I'm sorry. Okay, so that's what we've got from the database. Okay. Now, as you can see from this representation, every customer record is complete. Now, in the real world, you may have every single record occupying a lot of space. Indeed, there could be many customer records in a given table. So what we are going to experiment with, we are going to make the customer record a bit more minimalistic, and we are going to drop its name element, but we are going to add attribute which called href, which will contain a hyperlink to the complete record. Let me do it now. So we're going back to the XML map, stopping the job, going back to the XML map, and removing CNAME because we won't need it now. But we're going to add attribute called href, right? So what we're going to do next, we're going to use the context variable representing the absolute URI of the current request, and we are going to map that variable to this attribute. Okay, so we're selecting the variable called URI absolute. Okay, and we're going to modify it just a bit slightly, which will be like this, and plus the ID of the individual customer. Row 1 ID. Okay, and we're going to map this var to href. Let's see what happens next. Okay, run again. Going to back to our browser window. So let's see. So as you can see, the every customer record takes a bit less space, meaning the number of information it represents, but it also adds a link to the actual record. This also can be further optimized. For example, this absolute URI can be put on the root element, and then have individual records containing only relative references. So what we're going to do next, we're going to add handlers for your URIs like this. Getting back to TDS request. And we're going to add new mapping. Let's call it get customer. Okay. So this get customer will contain an ID, variable, and we're going to modify the padding as follows: customers ID, where ID is a template variable. Okay. Next, we're going to drop a few more components which we'll need to handle the request for individual records. We're going to copy this one, paste. Okay. And then we're going to add new TXML map component. Like this. Okay. We're going to add new TDS request. Okay. And what we're going to do next, we're going to connect our get customer mapping to TXML map, and also going to connect this component to XML map as well. Okay. And finally, we're going to connect these two. It's a single customer record. Okay. And there we are just using the ID of from the get customer mapping and moving it like this. So basically what happens is that the ID retrieved from the URI will be used as the key for querying the customer record, and we're repeating the procedure here, but this time it's just a customer. Okay, still need to set it as a loop element though, and next we are just mapping this component to this one. This is an attribute. Now this time we are returning the complete records, so we are needing all of them. Okay, and this one too. That's it. This works. Now one more thing we're going to add here is we're going to add a null attribute, which will serve as a back reference to the complete list of records. Okay, but this time we will add we'll use a base URI request of the base URI of the current request. This one. Okay, and also going to modify it a bit. Customers. So here we go. Running our job again. Okay, going back to the browser and selecting this URI, for example. So that's the complete records now, and so we have all the information as well as the link to the backlink to the main list, right? So we can repeat it for another customer, for example, like this. Okay, that's number 1, number 4. So finally, what we're going to do is to introduce the basic paging support for our service. As you can imagine, a single table can contain thousands and hundreds of records, and it may make sense to let users to retrieve records in pages. And for the purpose of this presentation, we will just introduce basic query parameters called from and to, and we'll be using them to limit the number of records returned. So let's get back to our job. Now we're going to modify the TRS request mapping, and this one specifically for this component mapping, and we are going to introduce two parameters: from, which is a query. Multiple optional parameters supported. It could include query, headers, forms, and we're also setting a default value to some known values to us. Sorry, just one more parameter, so that we can build SQL queries easily. Say 7. Alright. Okay, and we also need to modify this query, and this is probably the most involved bit. We're equal to plus, and individual parameters from TRS request component can be retrieved at any level using global map. So what we do is write global map get, and the name of the parameter is called by the name of the mapping. In this case, it's get customers. Get customers from, and ID less or equal to get customers to. Okay, so that's the most complex part of this job, really. Done. Run. Okay, so let's get back to our browser. Sorry, wrong button. Um, so it's still there. How about equal to 2, right? Or 3, for example. As you can see, we're limiting a number of records to 2, and we can modify it a bit differently from 2 and 2 equal to, say, 4. Okay, so that's how we've introduced the basic paging support. So here you go, you can see how sophisticated the job can become and how flexible data integration components are. And that's basically it. This is the end of this presentation, and thanks for listening. Bye.